Your foot touches the ground and the leg folds under you. The sickle drops first, then your knee. You try to stand, but the leg will not hold your weight. The grain is ready now. The other workers are already moving while you remain in the dirt. You cannot follow them. You cannot reach the tool beside your hand. Before sunset, several people may be pulling the injured leg straight. A 14th century surgical text describes it wrapped in linen and felt, then trapped inside 7 wooden splints tied with 3 cords. 7 splints, 3 cords, several hands. Surviving the break was possible. That was only the first problem. 4 obstacles now stand between you and ordinary life. Someone must replace the missing worker. Someone must set the bone. The body must remain still long enough to heal. And the local rules must keep waiting until you can work again. But who works while you lie still? The first danger does not begin in the leg. It begins when another hand picks up the sickle. The obvious answer is that your wife, a child, a relative, or a hired worker takes your place. The field keeps moving. The household adapts. But a household cannot create another adult body. It can only move the burden from one person to another. Someone still has to prepare food, bring water, adjust your bedding, and help you move without placing weight on the injured leg. If your wife remains inside to care for you, the field loses her too. If a child is sent outside, the manor may receive a body without receiving the strength or experience it expected. One manor court complained about a 14-year-old boy sent to perform an adult tenant's work. Another young substitute was recorded as harvesting badly. That line is almost painfully small. It does not describe a disaster. It records a boy failing to keep pace. But that is what the fracture looks like after it leaves the body. The grain is still cut, only more slowly. The task is still performed, only by someone less prepared. The injured man is still alive, but his absence is now being carried by everyone around him. Local customs show different attempts to solve this. At Broughton, one rule said a sick tenant's wife could remain home to care for him. At Upwood, another placed the duty of finding a replacement on the abbot. These were local rules. Not one medieval system, but they reveal the same truth. The sickle never stopped needing a hand, and if the household could keep the work moving, the next question was whether the leg could be made useful again. The obvious solution is to tie it to a piece of wood and wait. The surgical instructions were more deliberate than that. The injured limb was examined by hand. Assistants held the patient while the practitioner pulled the leg into line and compared it with the uninjured side. Linen and felt protected the skin. 7 splints surrounded the limb. 3 cords held them in place. But the more completely the leg was trapped, the more dangerous neglect became. Swelling changed the pressure beneath the bindings. The cords had to be inspected and adjusted. A brace that began as protection could become another source of damage if it was left too tight while the body changed beneath it. So treatment was not one dramatic moment. It was a sequence. Pull, compare, wrap, brace, inspect, adjust. The records support a scene something like this. The injured worker lies near the wall because there is nowhere else to put him. One person holds his shoulders. Another grips the ankle. The practitioner compares both legs, then tightens the cords around the splints. Near the doorway, the sickle is gone. Someone has already taken it into the field. The patient watches the empty peg where it used to hang while the final knot is pulled tight. Nothing in that room guarantees success. A medical text records what a trained practitioner was told to do. It does not prove that every village had one, every family could reach one, or every fracture could be corrected, and even perfect instructions could not shorten the next enemy. Time. The same surgical tradition warned that a broken leg might need 8 to 10 weeks before the patient began moving with crutches. That was not 8 weeks until the pain eased. It was 8 weeks of protecting a structure that could still fail beneath the body. Standing too early could undo everything. The text warns that walking too early might break the healing bone again. Even if the bone stayed together, it could unite in the wrong position, leaving one leg shorter and changing every step that followed. The bone can heal while the person does not return to the body they had before. Several people buried in medieval Cambridge survived serious lower limb injuries long enough for their bones to unite. The injuries did not kill them, but researchers could still see lasting changes in the way those bodies carried weight. The evidence survives in pieces. Bones preserve. The injury, but usually not the person's job. Manor accounts preserve names and absences, but rarely the diagnosis. Surgical texts preserve instructions, but not proof that the treatment reached every patient. Put together, they show something more unsettling than automatic death. The bone could heal while ordinary movement did not return. You live. The wound closes. The leg becomes solid again, and you may still limp toward every task you once performed without thinking. Up to this point, the enemy has been physical. Weight, swelling, alignment, pain. Now the story changes. What happens if the rule stops waiting before the bone does? The next danger is written in ink. Some medieval estates allowed customary tenants to miss labor when illness made work impossible. That sounds like protection. Sometimes it was, but there was no single rule. One manor might allow 15 days. Another might allow a month. In parts of the Ramsey Abbey estates, protection could extend much longer, and the details mattered more than the word leave. One custom excused a sick tenant from certain duties while still requiring plowing and harvest work. Another allowed 4 weeks before the tenant could be ordered back, healthy or not. The body followed one calendar. The manor followed another. Accounts from the same stretch of 5 weeks and 2 days show how different those obligations could be. One tenant missed 37 required works, another missed only 8. The same length of absence. A completely different weight placed on the household. So the final obstacle was not simply whether the bone healed, it was whether the protection around the worker lasted as long as the injury did. And here is the turn that makes the system stranger. An old labor obligation could sometimes pause because a sick body could not perform it. But in some places, when labor services were replaced by cash rent, those customary forms of sick leave could disappear with them. The field no longer needed your body on a particular day. The payment still arrived on its date. A labor service could recognize that a man was physically absent. Money did not get sick. That does not mean the older system was kind. It means the cost changed shape. One rule demanded your body. The newer obligation could keep demanding value after the body had failed. A broken leg shrinks a life one circle at a time. First, the foot loses the ground. Then the household loses a worker. Then another person leaves a task to carry water, prepare food, adjust the splints, or enter the field. The grain stays standing while its harvest window closes. The manor counts the missing labor. The final protected day moves closer, and the bone may heal before any of those problems do. They replaced the worker. They aligned the bone. They guarded the healing. They hoped the rule would wait. Your foot touches the ground again. This time, the leg holds. But that does not mean ordinary life has returned. The real danger after a medieval peasant survived a broken leg was the distance between staying alive and becoming useful to the world around him again. That distance belonged to everyone. It belonged to the person who carried his water, the hands that tightened the cords, the child or relative who entered the field, and the local rule that decided how long absence could be tolerated. Medieval fracture care was not simply primitive medicine failing in the dark. It was a practical attempt to protect a healing body inside a world that could not pause for it. And now the sickle from the dirt returns. Maybe the injured man reaches it. Maybe another hand already has. The body survived. The calendar never stopped. Subscribe to Medieval Stick Stories for more evidence-driven stories about ordinary medieval lives. It helps these overlooked stories reach the people looking for them.